Hey everybody, I'm David on Earth. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to take an honest assessment of what among my backpacking gear is actually worth the money I spent for it. And some of it's not cheap. So I think to answer the question about what gear was worth the money, a person would need to answer, what gear do I really need, right? Because it stands to reason that if gear doesn't fill a legitimate need, then it's just fun money spent. Now, some people have fun money and others don't. Some people need to watch very closely and be very selective and purposeful about their gear spending. And others have a little bit of spare cash laying around and they don't know what to do with it, so they spend it on great backpacking gear. All right, so no judgment here, just that's the reality of it, right? Some people can afford stuff and some people gotta be picky. Now, I know there are things we bring with us that are not technically needs, but we would say they're definitely worth the money. For instance, I have a pair of down socks that are a bit of a luxury item, but on those cold nights, with these things on, I can actually get a great night's rest, which is like peanut butter on jelly on gold. It's fire. What do the cool kids say these days? Okay, let me turn this on you. So, for those of you who have been backpacking for a while, what would you say is on your gear list that is absolutely needed, absolutely worth the money? Things that you could not go on a trip without. Maybe things other than what I'm going to mention here today, some of the more obvious things. Comment down below. Now, we're mostly in the realm in this discussion of discriminating between needs and wants. And that should be a pretty short list, right? There are a few things that I think are absolutely worth the cost and absolutely worth the time coming to a right decision for me to exchange my hard-earned money for stuff. The most obvious things on this list would be the big three, right? Your backpack, something to carry what you need to survive out there. A shelter, something that you need to keep you safe and out of the elements, right? And your sleeping system, at least enough to give you a good night's rest to keep you from, exhaustion. I also might add a kitchen to this list, right? Whatever you need to prepare your meal and ensure you are drinking safe water. Now, that could be a stove, it could be this cold soaking kit, or maybe neither. Maybe it's a water filter, or maybe just some purification tablets. But these things are important decisions anywhere you go. Another thing for the list is proper clothing, including footwear. Right? Clothing and footwear are seasonal typically, and the location of your trip may also influence what you need, like, temperature, terrain, things like that. The clothes protects you from the elements, and your shoes are the tires on your car, right? It's tough to hike barefoot, and I wouldn't recommend that, so shoes are pretty important. So that's my list. It's pretty short. Now, I would say everything else for me is not really required. Everything else falls into this want category, which may or may not be worth the money and the carry. Now, here's kind of the tip of the day. If after everything we go through here today, you still don't know, but you buy stuff anyway, there's one sure way to find out whether it's worth the cost and the carry. Strap on your back and go out hiking for 100 miles. That's how you find out what's worth the carry and what's worth the cost. Guarantee you carry your stuff around for 100 miles and it will quickly become clear what's worth it. Take my advice or not, you'll figure it out. Now let's take a look at what I have for each one of these categories. Okay, so backpack. A good backpack is essential for any backpacking trip, right? But how big should your backpack be? Well, it's tough to know what capacity you will need until you figure out all the gear that you're going to carry. Do you need a 40 liter? Do you need a 65 liter? That will depend on how much room you need for your tent, your sleeping system, your clothes, all that. It'll also depend on what time of year you're going. Warmer temperatures usually means lighter or less bulky gear. And therefore, the smaller capacity and lighter pack would be fine. Now, this is why it is common advice to wait to buy your pack until you have all your other essential gear. Now, features you'll need to consider for your pack are volume capacity, and this is typically measured in liters. The construction material that it's made from, the craftsmanship, the comfortable carry weight, that is the maximum weight you can carry without the pack becoming too uncomfortable, and how heavy the pack is. Now, there are packs that have lots of features. Some have just an opening on the top, others have side openings and bottom openings. Some have extra pockets and extra tie-down points and straps. And now, I'm not one for all the extra stuff, because with every extra feature usually comes additional weight. But maybe you want those extras, and that's fine. But these are all questions that you need to answer for yourself. The two packs that I love in 3-season backpacking, that fit me well, that don't have a lot of extra stuff, that are both under 2 pounds, and they carry well for me, and they are the Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60. That's this one right here. I'm not going to go through all the features on this thing, but just to show you what it looks like. Now, this model here is like 8 years old. It comfortably carries about 25 pounds for me. The design improvements over the past several years may be that you can carry more with this, but when I bought this that long ago, if I put more than 25, maybe 30 pounds, it just got uncomfortable. Now, the cost at the time was around $260. They are now $315, and it's a 60-liter total capacity. That's the main compartment plus all the other pockets on this thing. It adds up to 60 liters. It has great craftsmanship, and it's made out of recycled Robic nylon, so it's pretty tough. I use this on the Colorado Trail with mostly really good results. It's a very common through hiking pack that you see out there when you watch videos. So I like my Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60. The other pack that I really like is a Durston Kakwa 40. And this is right here. You'll see me hiking with this more often these days than my Mariposa, for a few reasons. This pack carries a little bit more weight more comfortably. I think it's rated at 45 pounds comfortable carry weight. Now, I've tested this at 30 pounds and it works fine for me. I've never had any need to carry more than that. Now, the engineers of this pack credit the design of the horizontal support in the frame for the ability of heavier carries. Now, it's made out of Ultra 200X fabric. It's one of the newer composite fabrics, and it's generally considered more durable than nylon, and it's very lightweight. Now, this Kakwa 40 comes in a few different sizes. Mine's a large size, and the total capacity on this one is 54 liters. It's a little bit lower than the Mariposa, but I always had a little bit extra room in the Mariposa anyway. Now, I can carry about 6 or 7 days worth of food in this thing. So if you have longer carries or larger carries in terms of bulk, especially with maybe like a large barrel type canister, a higher capacity pack may be better. But I don't see myself carrying all that very often, or if at all. Now, the cost of this Kakwa 40 is $250. So for me, these two packs are great purchases. Also, know that both of these companies make different size packs. So if these sizes aren't exactly what you're looking for, maybe they have some other ones that will suit you better. So what about your shelter? So what things should you consider when buying a tent? I think a good tent should be waterproof or highly water resistant and seam sealed. Most leaks on tents come from the seams, so look for that specifically. It should be made of durable materials. A light, generally less durable material would be about a 10 denier fabric. And it does go up from there, and it gets more durable as the fabric gets a little bit thicker. The lower the denier, the less the weight. Also note the floor material. The manufacturers should recommend whether you need a footprint with your tent. But generally, if it's lower denier floor material, you may need a footprint. And there's other reasons to have a footprint. But if you're looking to save a little weight, a little bulk, look at whether you need a footprint or not. It should be well constructed to handle the tension on the seams and the tile points. It needs to withstand windstorms. If you're camping above tree line especially, you'll need a very durable construction with many tile points. Now you should have enough room inside the tent to keep you comfortable and you and your gear safe and dry. If you're a tall person, your options are kind of limited. There's not a lot of tents for really tall people out there. Now keep in mind the horizontal dimensions are one thing, that's how tall you are and how wide you are, but also look at the vertical dimensions and the slope of the ceiling or the walls. It might fit you lengthwise, but it may be difficult for you to sit up and get dressed and undressed in the tent if it's not tall enough. And it should be easy to set up. Now, I think it's worth spending a bit more money to get a high-quality tent that's going to keep you dry, comfortable, and safe in the worst anticipated weather conditions. Now, the price of a good tent might sound ridiculous at first, but for those living outside for a month or more at a time, and maybe in isolated wilderness areas, and maybe in places where rescue might be expensive or may take days, spending $1,000 or more on a shelter starts to make sense. I'm not saying you should spend that much money, but consider how long this tent will be your home and where you'll be. Remember, safety first, always. But if you're only going out on weekend trips in more populated, easily accessible areas where you could orchestrate an exit pretty easily, a lower cost tent might be okay for you. It's really a risk assessment, right? In risk assessments, you are balancing likelihood and impact. The higher the likelihood of a bad event happening, and the higher the impact should that bad thing happen, the higher the risk level. And the stronger consideration you should give to what type of shelter you should get and how much you should spend on that shelter. Make smart and informed decisions. That's all. So what do I have? My tent is a Zpacks Duplex. It's a pretty common tent. In fact, it's the only tent I have these days. I got it just prior to my Colorado trail hike, where I would be living in it for a month and a half. It's well constructed. It's made from waterproof Dyneema fabric. It sets up fast and easy, and it's very lightweight. It fits in here. This is it. This is my tent and my floor and my stakes. It all fits in this little sack right here. So setting up fast and having it lightweight were two very important factors for me. The cons are that it's a single wall tent, which tends to have more condensation than double wall tents. And the fabric is not designed to last for decades. But that's the trade-off, right? There's always trade-offs when you're looking at gear. So decide for yourself what is the most and least important thing for you. Then prioritize as you go through and look at all your options. Okay, let's talk about the sleep system. Now, when I say sleep system, I'm essentially talking about two things. It's what's under you, and it's what's on top of you while you're sleeping. So under you, you should have a pad or a mattress, or maybe both. And on top of you is either a sleeping bag or a top quilt. Now, I could put out a couple of very detailed videos on this topic alone, but today I'm just going to cover it from kind of a high level. Let's go over a few things you should look at in your sleeping system. And these things apply to both parts of your system, what's under you and what's on top of you. So the first thing is that your gear should be temperature rated for the conditions you'll be in. Temperature ratings are kind of funny things because it depends on a lot of factors. And there's no guarantee that if your equipment is rated for 40 degrees, that you'll be warm and comfortable at 40 degrees. Factors include you, right? Some people generate more heat than others. It depends on what shelter you're in. It depends on humidity levels. It depends on the clothes you're wearing. There are just lots of factors. Also consider that there is no required industry standard for manufacturers when they determine what the temperature rating is. For sleeping bags and top quilts, the general rule I use is that I buy a temperature rating that's at least 10 degrees colder than what the coldest air temperature will be outside on my trip. For sleeping pads or air mattresses, they have R ratings. An R rating of 2 is normally fine for summer months. For winter months, I wouldn't go anything lower than a 4. And in the winter, I'll have a sleeping pad under my air mattress that has an R rating of around 2. And how this works is that you combine your R ratings if you're stacking them, right? So if my pad is an R rating of 2 and my mattress is an R rating of 4, you add those together, my R rating is 6. Another thing to consider, of course, is the size. It needs to fit you and how you sleep. Side sleepers benefit from wider sleeping bags or quilts, and they can get away with a narrower sleeping pad or mattress. Now, if you curl up when you sleep at night, a wider pad or mattress might be better for you. So consider how tall you are and how you sleep. The third thing is to get as lightweight as your budget can afford. Lighter carries are always better. Next, you want to get sleeping gear that is made from materials that suit the required durability. And air mattresses are subject to anything picky on the ground that might puncture them. Since sleeping on a cold ground is unpleasant, if you buy a less durable material, you may also want to buy a pad to put under your mattress or a footprint to put under your tent floor to protect against puncturing your mattress. The last thing I'll mention about your sleeping system here is that it should be compact as possible. Bulky things means that you'll need a bigger and heavier pack. So that's another trade-off thing you'll need to consider. So what do I have? Let's take a trip down memory lane. I bought this like 15 years ago. It's really kind of funny because I would never buy this now. It has a dual temperature, 20 degrees and 40 degrees. It depends on what side of the sleeping bag you have up. That was a theory. And it's not down. It's made from synthetic material. And this thing weighs a lot. This weighs 4 pounds, 2 ounces. So in every way, this sleeping bag here is completely inadequate for me in every possible way for any backpacking trip that I do these days. On most trips, I'll take one of my top quilts, which I'll review here in a minute. But on a cold trip, I'll take a sleeping bag. And I'll do this maybe a couple times a year. My sleeping bag of choice has been the Western Mountaineering 10-degree Versalite. It's a mummy bag, and it has 850 plus downfill in it. It's very well built. This thing is fantastic. Never ever had a complaint about this thing. I've had this out in 10 or 15 degree weather, somewhere around that range, and it worked out really well for me. And I had a couple of layers on too. And it weighs about 2 pounds. The cost of this thing is, are you ready? It's $735. Wowza. Totally worth the cost for me. It's one of those things where you buy once, cry once. This will be the last sleeping bag that I will ever buy like this in my life. I'm pretty old, but... All right. I have 2 top quilts that I use depending on the weather conditions. I have a 20-degree Loco Libre Operator Ghost Pepper, 850 downfilled. It's very lightweight. Yeah, let me get it for you. I store them, by the way, in bags. This is a little canvas cotton bag. It keeps them nice and fluffy. So this is it right here. I'm not going to take the whole thing out of here, but it's a very minimalist bag, and it's actually the reason I got it because it was for the cost. It was actually cheaper than any other bag on the market at the time for what I was getting. Now this is an open end one here that I have to cinch if I want to close it. Now it doesn't have a zipper. It has these snaps here, so you don't have the cost of the weight of the zipper. And it's just tall enough for me. Nothing fancy here on the collar. A little bit more padding, but nothing specific. So again, I bought this as kind of a minimalist, kind of a sleeping quilt, and it's I really enjoyed it. I took it with me on the Colorado Trail, the whole 500 miles. And some nights above tree line where it got down below freezing, it started to get a little bit uncomfortable for me, even with all my layers on. But keep in mind, I sleep cold. But overall, it was a great choice. It weighs around 1 pound, and it cost about $390. My other quilt is the Outdoor Vitals 15 Degrees Stormloft quilt. Now this is my go-to quilt in the early spring, maybe like in Arizona, or maybe early summers here in Colorado, or early fall here in Colorado. It's pretty much anytime the temperatures are below 40 degrees at night, I will take this one with me. And I think I reviewed this on a video some time ago. I'll put the link down below. But this one has a closed end foot box, and I find those closed end ones keeps me a lot warmer. There's a few extra features on this thing, like it has a little extra collar here that keeps me a little bit warmer. There's a button on the top here to button me up really good if I need to, a little cinch. This has been a really nice one for me. Really recommend it. Now this has 800 plus downfill in it, and it's really well constructed. Great materials. The cost for this thing is $395. So another part of your sleep system you'll need is a sleeping pad or air mattress. Now these keep you off the ground, sleeping more comfortably, and help retain your body heat, because your body heat will transfer to the cold ground if you're not insulated from it. Now sleeping pads like this Thermarest one here are for those who don't need the loft or the insulation value from an air mattress. I don't know many people like that, but there are some out there. Or a sleeping pad can also offer a layer of protection against the picky things on the ground, so you don't have to puncture your air mattress. And as mentioned earlier, it adds a temperature insulation value as well. So not bad to have one of these on hand. Okay, let's talk about air mattresses. On shorter trips, say less than 5 days, I'll take my Nemo Tensor Insulated 25-inch wide and the long version, and it weighs about 21 ounces. Now, do I need something this big? No, not really, but it sure is nice. I get a great night's sleep on this, and the R rating is 2.8. Now, the cost is, I forgot, I'll put it down below. Now, on longer trips, so I'm trying to cut down my weight and my bulk, I will take a smaller air mattress. Now, I have this 20-inch wide mattress here that I'll use for the summertime. It's the Nemo Elite Ultralight Insulated Sleeping Pad. It has an R rating of 2.4. Now, from what I understand, this is the lightest, or one of the lightest mattresses on the market. This regular size comes in at 11.6 ounces, and there's a shorter version that comes in about an ounce less. And it costs $229. But I got this for about half price because I got accepted into Nemo's Pro programs. Look at the size difference between these two. Saves a lot of bulk and it saves a bit of weight. So we'll see how comfortable it is. I do have another 20-inch one that I've used for a number of years. And then I went to a wider one. I felt much more comfortable. But these trips coming up are going to be, you know, a couple 100 miles each this summer. And so I don't want to carry the weight and I don't want to have the bulk. I need to have room for some more food in my pack. And so we're going to try this out to see if I can fall in love with the 20-inch one again. We'll see. Okay, that was the big three. In addition to the big three, I also think that some other gear is pretty important, like and I mentioned this earlier, like the stove, the cooking system that you're going to be using, maybe trekking poles. Your water filters are worth some time in making some important purchases that are definitely worth the time and the money that you'll spend figuring all that out. So trekking poles can really help on long and maybe steep hikes. Takes the stress off of your joints and your muscles. It really helps make you feel better at the end of the day. And a good water filter can give you peace of mind when it comes to drinking water on the trail. Who needs Giardia? Nobody needs Giardia. So your cooking system will be great for mealtime experiences, right? So I'm not sure if you're using a stove, what kind of stove you want to use, if you're going to be cold soaking, if you're just going to be eating, you know, stuff that doesn't require either cold soaking or heating. It's up to you. Now, I didn't go over all the details of those things in this video today, but have them on your list and go do some of your research. I'm trying to keep this video a little bit shorter, but if you want to see more about that in the future, if you want me to review those, just let me know down below. Okay, wrapping this up here. So what about you? If you use any favorite pieces of essential gear items on your backpacking trips, or if you have any questions about gear that I've mentioned here, be sure to put comments down below. Let's get a conversation going. Let's get some other ideas brewing here. And if you're new here, consider subscribing for more backpacking tips and gear reviews. And as always, I end with, go live like you want it. But why do I say that? It's because life is way too short to do it any other way. All right. I'll see you on the trail. Hey, this is David on Earth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And go to the website for some deals on gear. All right. See you on the trail.
Very good.